What's going on, guys? My name is Lieben, and today I'm going to be showing you one of the drawbacks of having a lowered car, and that's going to be that you're obviously going to be damaging parts underneath your car, which I'm sure most of you know. So today I'm going to be replacing the power steering line here. I have both of them. I'm not quite sure which one's the return and which one's the one that sends it. I got all this about a year ago. That's how long I've been driving the car with my damaged power steering line. But here I have one of the lines. This is the one that's actually is damaged. I'll go ahead and get underneath the car and actually show you, but this one right here is the one that's damaged, and then I believe I ordered this one beforehand thinking it was the other one. So I'm still debating whether I want to go ahead and change both of them or just the one I have damaged, but let me go ahead and get underneath the car to show you. Okay, so if we see these two lines right here are the ones that come down from the power steering reservoir, and they come down right here. And then right here is where I have the damaged one. So what I went ahead and did when it first got damaged, I thought I'd be able to fix it with just using some JB weld. And then I used some tape. Can't remember what it looks like, electrical tape, but it's a lot thicker. I can't remember why it was that I got this one. It's been so long. But yeah, this actually held up for quite a while, and it just recently started to leak some power steering fluid again. Which is why I put off replacing it, because it was doing a pretty good job. The JB weld right here is actually really hard right now, which obviously that's what it's supposed to do. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and replace that. They both go along right here, and can't really see, but they actually end up, there we go. One of them attaches right here, and then the other one is just clamped on up here. And from looking at it, it might be easier, I think, just to replace both of them, because they both have brackets that hold them into place. So I'm thinking if I can just take them both off with these brackets. There's another one that you might not be able to see, but right there, there's another bracket holding it onto the chassis of the car. So I'll be able to take it off from there, and most likely be able to take both of the lines off. And then up here is where the lines actually come up from. You guys can see right there is where one of the line ends, and the other one will be a lot harder because it actually goes underneath the reservoir. And as you guys can see right here, it's already pretty low, so I have to constantly be adding power steering fluid to this car, and I'm not trying to continue having to do that, so might as well just go ahead and replace them. So the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is actually drain the power steering fluid, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to unclamp one of the hose from underneath and just have the fluid drain from down there. Alright, so I went ahead and disconnected it all the way from the end where it actually connects to the rack and pinion or steering rack. I was going to try to do it from here because this is the lowest point, but I wasn't able to actually pull this out. It was a lot easier doing it from all the way from the end, which is why I did it from there. Now basically what I'm going to do is just wait for it to drain all the way from there, and then I will go ahead and pull it from here to see if any more of it leaks out before starting the removal process. And meanwhile the fluid is being drained, I'm just gonna go ahead and remove some of the stuff around here just so I can have a bit more space to see everything, such as the oil catch can, and then I believe this is the washer fluid reservoir. And actually I did just read the cap, and it's actually the reservoir for when, I believe, when the coolant overfills. So it is actually kind of important. I'm going to see if I can make some room without actually disconnecting. Alright, and there actually wasn't enough slack for me to move it out of the way, so I did go ahead and disconnect it. I didn't want to really go ahead and do that just because I didn't want there to be air in the system. I don't know how the coolant system works, so I don't know if just unconnecting this there is going to be air. Hopefully not, but I guess once I turn it on and drive it, and if it starts overheating, then I'll know there is. but hopefully because it's off, no air actually goes into the system. And as you guys can see now, there's a lot more room now to see where all of the hose go to and connect. So like I said, this one right here is one of the power steering lines, and then this one right here is the other one that I have. So now I'll go ahead and go underneath again, check to see if all the fluid has come out, and start taking the line apart from the end up to this side right here. Okay, and it is no longer leaking a lot of fluid, it's just dripping barely. I tried to take it off again from this side, but for some reason that hose is just really stuck onto the line, so I'll just go ahead and forget about it and move on to, it has a clip right here that holds both of the lines together. That can just be easily removed. It's just on there with some light pressure holding on the lines. And then from right here, I'll go ahead and remove this bracket from this 10mm right there. Instead of disconnecting both of the lines, I'll just go ahead and remove the whole bracket together, and yeah, go on from there. So I've taken off the clip and the bolt right here, but one of the things that I forgot to do actually is to disconnect the other hose, or the other line, from the end right there. So you guys can see it, it ends right here. So now I went ahead and measured it, and it's a 14mm. But with these, you want to be very careful because sometimes they get kind of binded up with all of, like, whether it's rust or dirt and stuff like that. And instead of this turning, the whole line starts turning. And if you're gonna reuse the same one, which in my case it doesn't matter as much because I'm gonna change it anyways. But let's say you were just trying to change the racking pinion, you want to be very careful not to damage this line and make sure that this is what's turning. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just spray it with some penetrating oil to make sure this gets all broken down so there's less chance of damaging the line, because this one is actually still good. I might just keep it just in case, you never know, so I don't want to damage it. Alright, so I was pretty lucky because of all the grime and oil and power steering fluid that has been leaking down here. It actually made it pretty easy to be able to take it off. As you can see right here, there really isn't any damage like I said normally happens. It actually slid out from right there from the thread pretty easy as well, so that's a good thing, because like I said, a lot of times these things just do not want to go ahead and unscrew. So now we have both lines disconnected from right there, took off the clamp that was right here, unbolted it from right here. The next step is to go ahead and disconnect it from this connection right there. And from what I can see, there's two, I think 10mm bolts. There's this one right here that I think disconnects the actual bracket from the car, and then there's one back here on this right side which I think just opens up the bracket to take each individual line off. I'll go ahead and start by taking this off, and if I see I can take the lines like that, I'll go ahead and do that. But if I can't and have to take each individual line off by itself, I'll go ahead and remove the other one on this right side right there. So they can never make it easy on you. So I went ahead and took off this bolt right here, thinking that that would let the whole bracket come off, but no, the bracket is actually held on by two bolts. So there's one right here, and there's another one even further back that I can't reach to. So what I went ahead and did is I had to remove this one, so then at least I can bend the bracket a little bit, because this is like rubber bushings. And then that allows me to have enough room to be able to remove this other bolt right here. I'm not sure if you guys can see that bolt barely right there, but if you don't remove the first bolt, then that bolt will actually bump into the chassis of the car and it won't be able to come out. So what I went ahead and did is I just pushed everything to the side, and right there you can actually see the bolt a little bit better. So now I'll go ahead and take that off, and then hopefully that opens up the bracket so I can take off the lines. I hope I have the camera aimed correctly, but if I do, you guys can see right there that it just popped off the top line, and it's the same way with the bottom line. Now I'm gonna go ahead and go on the top side and disconnect everything there so I can just pull it down when everything's disconnected. And so basically up here I think it's pretty easy. What I want to go ahead and do is go ahead and unclamp the hose right there with that clamp you see right here, and then go ahead and unbolt this big bolt right here. That's basically what's holding on each hose, and then after that hopefully I should be able to slide it down. Alright guys, so about 20 minutes later and a bunch of scratches later, I finally got that freaking hose to come off. Honestly, that thing was such a pain. Alright guys, so I had to jump a little forward. My dad came down here and helped me because the lines kept on getting caught when I was trying to pull them down. One thing I did forget to mention is that there is a sensor on this line that you have to make sure you disconnect. I was yanking on it, and that was one of the reasons why it wasn't coming off. And then this one right here is just connected by a bolt. That bolt right there was the one that was holding it on. So after that, I basically just pulled it underneath right there. It was a bit challenging, but you are able to do it. It probably would have been easier if I just disconnected that right there and pulled one hose off instead of trying to do both of them at the same time. But yeah, now that I have them on, I also went ahead and checked both of those, and both of them are the same hose. I made sure they had all the bends and all that, so they should be good. So now basically the next step is to go ahead and install them. Alright guys, so it's the next day. I went ahead and tried to search up that sensor in my local auto parts store, but everywhere that I looked, that sensor costs more than $100, and I really didn't feel like spending that money right now just because I know that sensor does work. So I'll go ahead and install the same one onto the new line, and then if it ever goes bad, then I'll go ahead and change it then. Okay, and now that I have it installed on there, I went ahead and also cleaned it with some electrical connector cleaner. I can now go ahead and actually go ahead and feed it back up to the bottom. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. Alright, and now that I've fed it through here, I'll go ahead and go back up and connect it from the top side just so I know it has one fixed position and it doesn't keep on moving around too much on me. And there you can see that the line is actually on top here, pretty close to where it needs to be. And the good thing about this kit is that it came with some new washers as well, so I can go ahead and replace those too. I had to stop the camera because it was taking me forever to be able to align that bolt, but I was finally able to do it, and as you can see, it is now on there. So now I'll go ahead and go back under the car, because the next step is to, don't know if you can see right there, but that is where the other bracket goes that holds it onto place. So that's going to be the next point that I connect. Okay, and if you guys can see now, I went ahead and put that bushing on there. I just went ahead and fed the line through it. It's not connected, so it can easily fall off, but that's alright, because the next step that I'm actually going to go ahead and do is go ahead and assemble this line so I can also feed it through and then connect it from on top here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the old line as reference to see in what position each one of the hose goes connected onto the line. Alright, and there we go. The new line now has the same bends as the old line. So now I can go ahead and get underneath the car and go ahead and feed it up here. Same way as I did as the old one. Alright, and now that I officially have both lines connected up here, I will go ahead and go back down and start connecting everything in the bottom again. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and connect the lines from this end. Alright, so I have this one threaded, and you want to be careful because those threads are pretty delicate. Right now I kind of felt like it was gonna cross thread, so I decided to go ahead and pull it back out and try realigning it before just forcing it in. And now I'll go ahead and move on to this one here. Alright, and there we go. We have this one. I still need to tighten this one, but at least it's in, and I have this one clamped down. At least that way I know it's connected on each side, so now it'll be easier to go ahead and align it here in the middle with all of the remaining supports that it has. And actually, I'm pretty sure this one, the same way it was the most difficult one to take out, it's probably going to be kind of challenging to put the bracket on, because I have to go ahead and fit both hose through the bushing right here, and then I have this bracket right here that goes on the opposite side, and then I have to feed the bolt through this side. So it's going to be a couple of things that I'm going to have to be trying to juggle here, so I'll go ahead and show it as best as I can. Alright guys, so that took way longer than it needed to, but like I said, because I had to hold on to the bracket on the left hand side, made sure the lines wouldn't pop off the bushing, and then try to feed the bolt from this other side, from the right side. It made it a lot more complicated, and also there's not that much room, which was making it really difficult. But eventually I was able to get it through, and I was able to tighten both of the bolts down. So the one on the right there, and then the one that's on the bottom right there, connecting it to the chassis. So now both of those are secure on there. And now I will go ahead and move on to this bracket right here that's actually still currently attached to the old lines. Alright, and here I have the bracket on put as well. I'm not really showing you how I do it, just because there's limited space down here, and like I said, it's pretty much the same step as doing it as when you're taking it off, just in reverse. So after I did the hard bracket down there, I moved down to this right here. This was pretty easy, and then now I'll just go ahead and actually finish tightening up the ends right here. This one, like I said, is a clamp, so that one's already good to go. I just need to go ahead and tighten that last one right there before actually tightening the big bolt from this same line up on top. So I'll go ahead and do that. Alright, and I am officially done down here. Now I just have to go ahead and tighten the last bolt. Alright, and now that that bolt is tight, the last thing up here is to connect the sensor back. Okay, and there we go. Both of the lines are now officially on, and now I just have to go ahead and put everything back here, like the coolant reservoir, and then put the oil catch can back to where it was. Okay guys, and we officially have the power steering lines on there, as well as everything else. As you can see, I put everything back on where it was at. Both of the lines are installed. So now the last step would be to go ahead and fill up the power steering with power steering fluid, and then go ahead and turn on, and then just make sure that there aren't any leaks anywhere. But that's pretty self-explanatory. The purpose of this video was just to go ahead and show you guys how to install those lines. So I'll go ahead and see you guys in the next one.